Another day, another Edmonton Oilers trade, this time bolstering the bottom six. Who have the Oilers acquired and how will he help the Oilers? We will talk about that and much more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. As mentioned on today's episode, we're going to start off with the brand new acquisition of Nick Bjugstad. The Edmonton Oilers have acquired Nick Bjugstad and Cam Dineen in exchange for a third-round pick and Michael Kesselring. We will talk about that trade in just a second. But also on today's episode, a massive win for the Edmonton Oilers over the Toronto Maple Leafs. A great game for the Oilers and Mattias Ekholm's debut as an Edmonton Oilers. So what went well for the Edmonton Oilers and just how many points did Connor McDavid get? Let's be real here. We'll talk about that a little later on, and we will wrap up, as always, after every Edmonton Oilers game with the good, the bad, and the ugly. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcast. Excuse the difference, excuse the stardust, as some might say, on the move on the road for the deadline. So a remote background, a remote studio for the next couple of days. We'll be back on Monday. So I apologize for that. But enjoy the Sheldon Surrey and the Dustin Penner jerseys over our shoulders, huh? Never failing with the jerseys. But you don't care about me, you care about the acquisition the Edmonton Oilers made today, as the Edmonton Oilers at around 3 o'clock this afternoon, 2 o'clock this afternoon, the Edmonton Oilers acquired Nick Bjugstad from the Arizona Coyotes in exchange for a third-round pick and Michael Kesselring. Yes, unfortunately, the Edmonton Oilers will have to part with the AHL's leading goal scorer from or amongst defensemen in Michael Kesselring, but the Edmonton Oilers will also acquire Cam Dineen in that trade as well. Cam Dineen was a third-round pick, shockingly, in 2016, 68th overall. So the Edmonton Oilers have added 2 third-round picks over the last couple of days. The first one being Patrick Pistola in the Jesse Puljujärvi deal. But Nick Bjugstad is a massive addition for the Edmonton Oilers, as Nick Bjugstad so far this year in 59 games, 13 goals, 10 assists, 23 points. He has 20 points at 5-on-5, which is very impressive. The other thing, too, is +7 for Nick Bjugstad. Now, I know a lot of people have their qualms, I guess, about plus-minus, including myself. I'm not the biggest plus-minus supporter, but with the Arizona Coyotes, that is a very important stat. Now, Nick Bjugstad can also play on the penalty kill. He will he will be slotted into the bottom 6 for the Edmonton Oilers, which says something for the Oilers, because now the Edmonton Oilers have swapped out a guy in Jesse Puljujärvi who was not really producing for the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, he had the exact same amount of points that as Tanner Jeannot has this year. But Nick Bjugstad, 23 points so far this year, 20 coming at 5-on-5. For a team who's looking to get better at 5-on-5, that is a great addition. So the Edmonton Oilers, when fully healthy, with Nick Bjugstad, look very strong. On the top line, Evander Kane alongside Connor McDavid and Zach Hyman. Again, this is at full strength. Evander Kane still out with his rib injury, but he does, when he is at full strength, I should say, or full health, 12th. The Edmonton Oilers will be slotting him there on the top line. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins with Leon Draisaitl and Kyler Yamamoto on the second line. Warren Fogle, Ryan McLeod, and Clem Costin on the third line. And Derek Ryan and Nick Bjugstad make up the 3.5-4 line if the Edmonton Oilers are going with the 11-7. That looks much more improved from, well, basically a week ago. Honestly, you could even say since Monday, the Edmonton Oilers are a better team. We saw the impact Ekholm had just last night. We'll get to that in a bit, but I'm not saying Nick Bjugstad will have a similar output or impact on the Edmonton Oilers, but he will have an impact. Now, he does play that penalty kill. He'll probably be slotted in, I assume, on that top unit. Could he be next to McDavid? That would be pretty interesting. McDavid, Bjugstad, Ekholm, Desharnais, and we'll talk a lot about Ekholm and Desharnais. They were fantastic last night. Bjugstad, Yamamoto, and Ekholm as well. I can see, and Desharnais, as well. I just want to say Ekholm, Desharnais. But I could see him being paired up with Yamamoto as well. He can take faceoffs. He can play on the wing as well. So good acquisition for the Oilers there as well. Now, another thing I want to mention about this deal is that the Edmonton Oilers are acquiring guys who want to be in Edmonton. Bjugstad was looking at Edmonton in the offseason. He admitted, and it's a place that he wants to have success in as well. This is all stuff that he admitted in his press conference or availability, I guess you call them now. There's not really press conferences anymore, are there? But in his availability today after the trade, he said he wants to have success here, was looking here as an option. He does have a 1-year deal at $900,000. I should also mention, though, it is a $900,000 contract. However, the Arizona Coyotes will be eating up 50% of the contract as a part of the deal. So the Edmonton Oilers will only be paying $450,000 of that deal. Now, Nick Bjugstad did also say that he came to Edmonton as a kid playing at the Brick Tournament, the infamous Brick Tournament at West Edmonton Mall. Said it was the best 7 days of his life. He's going to have to get back to West Edmonton Mall there. But I mention that because he's another player who wants to play in Edmonton, who wants to succeed in Edmonton. And I say another player because that's exactly what Mattias Ekholm has been so far. You hear a lot of the verbiage and all the talk that Mattias Ekholm has said since becoming an Edmonton Oiler, and it's been positive. But even his wife, who was born in northern Sweden, says that she's looking forward to snow. She has looked forward to being in a climate that's close to being home, and that's good for the Edmonton Oilers. They're going to be staying, Ekholm and his family are going to be staying over the summer as well in Edmonton, so that's good. It's good for the Edmonton Oilers to get players who want to win in the blue and orange. It's very important. Last note on Nick Bjugstad, he as well will be wearing number 72. Now, you must be curious going, number 72, who's the last person to wear number 72? Well, it's actually Hunter. Yes, a mascot Hunter is wearing number 72. So Nick Bjugstad, Tony Brar asked a funny question going, so what are you going to do with Hunter knowing that's his number? He goes, well, my kids love the mascot, so probably going to have to do something there. Either way, big deal for the Oilers as they acquire Nick Bjugstad from the Arizona Coyotes along with Cam Dineen. I do want to mention with Cam Dineen, 50 games played so far down with the Tucson Roadrunners, 4 goals, 31 assists, 35 points for him. Now, he does have 34 games of NHL experience, all being last year in 2021-2022, where he played 34 games, 7 goals, or 7 assists, no goals, all 7 points being assists. He did have an assistant captain role in Tucson, so has a little bit of leadership down there as well. So a good addition to the Bakersfield Condors there, and could he be a call-up as well? Does have that experience. Alrighty, let's wrap up the talk about Nick Bjugstad, and let's talk about last night. How about that win for the Edmonton Oilers? A massive win in Mattias Ekholm's debut as an Edmonton Oiler over the Toronto Maple Leafs. Just how good was it? We will talk about that in just a second, but first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That is bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss out on the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Alrighty, well, I don't know what's going to be left to move tomorrow, as the NHL trade deadline is Friday, March 3rd, tomorrow. So join us on the Locked On NHL YouTube channel from 12 to 2 p.m. Mountain Time on Locked On NHL as the Locked On NHL host break down the biggest deals from across the league. I shall be there. I cannot wait. I mean, trade deadline is a national holiday in my house, so there's no way I am missing this, and you can join us there. Come have a familiar face with you for this national holiday. The Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Already, speaking of your team every day, the Edmonton Oilers with a massive 5-2 victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs last night. It was from the first period a big game for the Edmonton Oilers, and you just knew something was going to, a little different for the Edmonton Oilers. It just felt different. The crowd was into it. You had the obvious Leaf fans that only see their Leafs once a year here in Western Canada. So it was a busy night. There were a lot of people in the crowd, and it was a great one. The Edmonton Oilers got off to the big start, as it was who else? Connor McDavid getting the scoring started for the Edmonton Oilers, just continuing his massive season. 2 goals in this game. He now has 52 goals, 66 assists, 118 points, 62 games into the season. That is just absurd. It was a great game for Connor McDavid against his hometown team, I guess you can say, with him being from Ontario, but a big time game for Connor McDavid. Klim Kostin, also a shout out to Klim Kostin for him as well, a goal and an assist in this one, bringing his total to 10 goals, 7 assists, 17 points. Klim, again, just a really good game for him. The Edmonton Oilers from the start played it was almost a night and day difference from the Boston Bruins game to the Toronto Maple Leafs game. The Toronto Maple Leafs game had all 4 lines going, all 3.5 pairings were going on full stride, and the Edmonton Oilers were rolling. Against the Boston Bruins, you had your big guys, your big guns really pumping, but other than that, it wasn't going for the Oilers. And you see the difference. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Mattias Ekholm what a fit. What an addition. What a fit. There's not enough good things that can be said about Mattias Ekholm's game last night. And that's without a practice. He hasn't had a practice with the Edmonton Oilers. He hasn't had a full day at that point with the Edmonton Oilers. And he came out there and changed the entire mentality of the Edmonton Oilers. He had an assist in the game, 1.3 hits on the night, 2 blocks, 20 minutes and 50 seconds on the ice, and 2 minutes and 28 of those coming on the penalty kill. The Edmonton Oilers really utilized him as he was the number one player in faceoffs taken in the defensive zone, or defensive zone starts as well. You can put that under, but he was utilized in the way he was supposed to be utilized. He was great with the puck. Heck, his first shift with the Edmonton Oilers, he was up in the charge with the Edmonton Oilers. He was the first man in on 3-on-2 coming in, and just really showed what he brought to the Edmonton Oilers. Speaking of Mattias Ekholm, he was all over the place with his D partners last night. Spent time with Evan Bouchard, Vinny Desharnais, Philip Broberg, Darnell Nurse, and Cody Ceci. Most time spent with Evan Bouchard, where he spent 12 minutes and 13 seconds, and they were fantastic. A 0.646 expected goals for amongst defensemen while on the ice there. An expected goals against of 0.19, was on the ice for 2 goals for, 0 goals against, had 11 shots for, and 4 blocks on the 10 shot attempts against, or shot attempts against, excuse me. There we go. But that is fantastic. The fact that they are getting in front of pucks, and it's not necessarily them, that it just means while they were on the ice, them and their unit were able to keep it difficult for the opposition to get pucks towards the net. His time with Vinny Desharnais, man, I want to see so much more of that. That was a defensive masterclass if I've ever seen one. Every time I saw them on the ice together, it was just Mozart. Beautiful hockey. I believe it was it was shorthanded in the second period. Austin Matthews was coming in on the rush, and it was Desharnais and Ekholm. Desharnais and Ekholm at the exact same time threw their stick into the lane and created almost the gates of hell between the two of them. There was no way any puck was ever going to go through them. And then after that, at the exact same time, after they broke up the play, they went for the hit on Austin Matthews. The Edmonton Oilers were fantastic in their own end, breaking up plays, breaking up the cycle, really being physical and getting in front of shots. The Edmonton Oilers had probably, if not their best game of the season, 100% their best defensive effort of the season. And now the Edmonton Oilers add Nick Bjugstad to that lineup. I think the Edmonton Oilers are really going to be a very strong team. Genuinely, I know there's this easy ability to kind of drink the Kool-Aid a little too early. Excuse me. Well, now that I was so rudely interrupted by that, but no, I know it's very easy to really drink the Kool-Aid very quickly and go, oh, this team is so good, blah, blah, blah. But that was just an absolute masterclass by the Edmonton Oilers. And it's just a matter of being able to continue to do so. So we will see if the Edmonton Oilers can do so as they host the Winnipeg Jets tomorrow night. That is going to be a big one at Rogers Place, a home and home, between those two. They will play on Friday and then over to Winnipeg on Saturday for Hockey Night in Canada. 2 massive games. Nick Bjugstad will be flying to Edmonton tomorrow, but it doesn't sound like he will play against the Jets on Friday. We will see about his status on Saturday. Either way, let's move on to the good, the bad, and the ugly from last night's game against the Maple Leafs. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. If you don't have players on the field with the right skills, whether it's a breakaway speed or elite playmaking ability, you're going to have a tough time winning. The same goes for your business. Indeed is a fast, simple way to make sure you're hiring MVPs. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed's Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you will get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Alrighty, let's wrap up today's episode with the good, the bad, and the ugly from the game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, starting off with the good. And what else could the good be? The good being the response from the Edmonton Oilers, a 6-5 loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets paired with a 3-2 loss to the NHL best Boston Bruins. The Edmonton Oilers go into their next game with a brand new player on their back end in Mathias Ekholm, plus they lose fan favorite, team favorite players in Tyson Barrie and Jesse Puljujärvi, and it's really a flipping of the page for the Edmonton Oilers, and the Edmonton Oilers come out against a difficult team, and they run away with it. A 5-2 victory, and potentially, as mentioned, their best game of the year. And again, if not, their best defensive effort of the year. It was a fantastic display by the Edmonton Oilers. And again, it's just a great response coming out from a flat game against the Boston Bruins. A new teammate. You lose Tyson Barrie and Jesse Puljujärvi, and you come out and you look like a brand new team. So the good being the response. The bad, you really thought we were going to go all episode without mentioning it. The bad is a bad boy, and that is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Oh my goodness, what a fight by Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Y'all forgot Nuge could fight, but please, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins puts to sleep Justin Hall. Oh my goodness, the over the top, the undercut, the uppercut. What a fight from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and that just really couples into the response and the new mentality by the Edmonton Oilers. That was in response to a nasty hit by Justin Hall on Kyler Yamamoto. Obviously, I think it was dirtier than what it was. I mean, it's a big guy on a smaller guy, I understand, but that was still in the head. Obviously, it seems like Yamamoto, initial reports seem to be fine, but that's the thing. That's exactly what Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is dropping the gloves for. You don't want to see this type of news come out of this type of game. So all massive props to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Plus, Justin Hall threw a pretty big hit on Connor McDavid earlier in the game as well. And I was watching a game with my father last night, and I turned to him and said, watch, Justin Hall's going to get touched up somewhere. And that ended up Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, the most underrated number one draft pick of all time in the NHL, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. And to the ugly from last night, I did want to talk about this as well, the Cody Ceci play. It was yelled offside. You could hear that on the broadcast numerous times. It was yelled offside 4 or 5 times. Michael Bunting came off the puck, really. Massive props to Mitch Marner for playing to the whistle, which is where you can knock Cody Ceci, but you could hear it in the broadcast or on the broadcast. So people were yelling offside. It was offside. Wasn't really proposed in a way on the broadcast that they really took a look at it on, at least from what I saw. So I'm unsure if they really did take a look at it. I think it's the wrong call, but you have to also put on Ceci. You got to play to the whistle. I also say in the same breath, how many times was offside called? I don't really blame him again, but just stupidity on all ends, really. And a shame because something like that does get and eventually tinted because the goal does stand and the officials' paw prints are on it. And yes, I would be saying the exact same thing if that benefited the Edmonton Oilers. You can also say that as well about the Warren Foegele goal. That should have been a goal for Warren Foegele. A quick whistle, and you can watch any game. You can watch any game tonight. You can see any game that across the NHL where there are puck battles like no tomorrow, and you're sitting there going, the puck is covered. You don't see the puck, but you could see the puck on the shot with Warren Foegele, excuse me. So I think that was a bad call there, but mostly the ugly, the Cody Ceci play. Just had to get that off my chest as well. So to wrap up, the good being the response by the Oilers. They lose 2 favorites in the locker room, fan favorites in Tyson Barrie and Jesse Puljujärvi, have a brand new player in Mattias Ekholm. They come back from a measly loss against the Boston Bruins and a shocking loss against one of the worst teams in the NHL, against the Columbus Blue Jackets. They come back and smack the Maple Leafs at home 5-2. The bad being Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, as he is a bad man. Toss in an assist with a fight. The knockout of the night as well for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Great to see. And the ugly, of course, the Cody Ceci play. Play to the whistle, everybody. Let's wrap it up there as the Edmonton Oilers face off against the Winnipeg Jets, and the Edmonton Oilers have a brand new player. Nick Bjugstad will not be in the lineup, at least as of right now. But will the Edmonton Oilers have another player to talk about as the Edmonton Oilers and the rest of the NHL go through the NHL trade deadline? 1:00 p.m. Mountain Time is the deadline. Will the Edmonton Oilers add more? We shall see. Make sure you join us at the Locked On NHL YouTube page, as we will be live from 12 to 2 there. It is going to be such a fun time. I think there's going to be over 21. Either way, let's wrap up there. What a day we have ahead of us, folks. Stay safe, and hopefully at the end of it, we can all play La Bamba, baby.